Hello learners, I welcome you all to the third lecture for the course on International Investment Law and the Environment. So in this lecture, we will be looking at two concepts, that is regulatory chill and race to the bottom, right? We'll be looking at these two concepts in detail. So in the first segment, I will give you an introduction to the concept of regulatory chill. We'll continue our discussion of regulatory chill in the second segment also, and in the third segment, the final segment of this lecture, we'll look at the concept of race to the bottom. Okay, so what is this regulatory chill? As you know, the dichotomy exists between the government wanting to take regulatory measure versus the protection that it had promised to the investors under a bilateral investment treaty or a treaty with investment provision. Right. So there are some scholars who believe that because the environmental measures or any regulatory measures taken by a host state for furthering its public objective gets challenged in an ISTS, and as a result of which it has to pay compensation to the investor, the monetary consequence of enacting a regulatory measure may affect the ability and willingness of the host state to enact that regulatory measure. The monetary aspect is not only limited to compensation paid to the investor. The host state has to spend money for defending the regulatory measure in ISTS as well. So therefore, there is a huge financial component that is riding when a host state enacts a regulatory measure. So it is believed that sometimes a host state is reluctant to take a regulatory environmental measure because it may anticipate that the investor may challenge it, and it has to pay compensation to the investor, as well as it has to spend money for defending the regulatory measure in ISTS as well. I mean, if you ask me how authoritatively can I say that regulatory chill concept is something evidently seen and all of that, you cannot prove the intent why the government has not enacted a measure. I mean, when a government enacts a measure, it clearly lays down the objectives why it is enacting the measure and all of that. But how can you clearly say that the government has not enacted the measure? So this is something that we can examine from a theoretical perspective, whether there is a possibility of this happening or not. I want to highlight the Philip Morris versus Uruguay case. In this case, Uruguay in its submission to the arbitral tribunal stated that many other countries also contemplated enacting anti-smoking regulatory measures, but they have not done so, and it named Paraguay, New Zealand and some other country in its submission itself. So Uruguay was saying that these countries did not take the regulatory measure because of and that is because of regulatory chill. Right. So this is something that we can only infer. We cannot authoritatively prove that regulatory chill as a concept exists, but we can infer from certain instances. Let me also give you one more example of Indonesia. Indonesia enacted a law in 1999 with regard to mining, and the mining law, what it stated was, it put a ban or it prohibited the open cast mining in certain places, certain areas for environmental concerns. So basically the mining law prohibited a certain open cast mining in some forest in Indonesia because of environmental concerns. Then the mining companies sort of opposed this move by Indonesia. Later we see that Indonesia has removed that prohibition. So then here you could say that in Indonesia, did it succumb to the pressure of the mining companies? We cannot authoritatively say, but we do say that there was a regulation, but now that regulation is not there. There was a prohibition earlier, that prohibition is now not there anymore, right? So we can only infer whether regulatory chill exists or not. So these are the things that, I mean, it's not just me talking about the possibility of regulatory chill existing in international investment law. This has been acknowledged in many other places as well, especially in the context of United Nations as well. Look at the report of the Special Representative of the Secretary General on the issue of human rights and transnational corporations and other business enterprises, where this report had stated that, it's a UN report which is stating that, so the report has stated that recent experience suggests that some treaty guaranteed and contract provisions may unduly constrain the host government's ability to achieve its legitimate policy objectives, including its international human rights obligation. That is because under the threat of binding international arbitration, a foreign investor may be able to insulate its business venture from new laws and regulations or seek compensation from the government for the cost of compliance. So, the phenomenon of regulatory chill is not only a theoretical contract, this is something that has been espoused by, at the international level as well, that there is a possibility of regulatory chill. Now, regulatory chill also, this concept disproportionately affects the developing countries more compared to that of the developed countries. Maybe when there is pressure from certain investors, the developed country can withstand that particular pressure, but we are not sure whether the developing countries can withstand the pressure. For instance, take Canada. So, Canada wanted to introduce some measures with regard to cigarette labeling. Then the many cigarette companies opposed this move of Canada, but Canada still went ahead and adopted those regulations. So, Canada was able to do so. Can other countries do the same thing? We can also see that when Australia introduced the plain packaging regulation, Philip Morris actually initiated, so not just a threat, actually initiated an investment dispute against Australia. At that point of time, Julia Gillard, the Australian Prime Minister, made a statement saying that we are not going to be intimidated by big tobacco tactics. We are not taking a backward step. We have made the right decision and we will see it through. So, sometimes the resistance comes from the host state as well. In case of developed countries, it is easier, but in developed countries, it may be difficult, but doesn't mean that developing countries will not see through their regulation. For instance, look at Bolivia. Bolivian President Evo Morales also made a statement in May 2007 that we empathetically reject the legal, media and diplomatic pressure of some multinationals that resist the sovereign rulings of countries, making threats and initiating suits in international arbitration. So, there is a possibility of some developing countries also to resist the pressure from MNCs, transnational companies. Possibility is there. When I say there is a possibility of resistance is there, then the possibility of succumbing to the pressure from multinational companies are also there. So, I would say that regulatory chill is not just a theoretical construct, it may exist in reality. So, what are the things that we could do to address regulatory chill? So, that is something that we will discuss in the next video, the second segment of this particular lecture. Thank you.